Hi, I've just finished this book that I picked up in a charity shop, and I picked it up because I thought the cover was lovely, and the title, The Whale at the End of the World, was just such an intriguing title. It was just one that sort of leapt out at me, so I picked it up. It's by John Ironmonger. I didn't mention that one. And it's charming and it's heartwarming, and it's a take on a dystopian novel almost. But whereas some dystopian novels are very bleak, this one is full of hope and community. It was a really surprising read. In some versions it's called Not Forgetting the Whale, or The Whale at the End of the World. I'm not sure why we've got two different titles, but this is this one. Joe Hack is a mathematician, and as we learned through flashbacks, he worked on the 5th floor of an investment bank. Now, Joe wasn't a trader, but he was sort of like a sort of analyst, I suppose. But he created this computer program that could predict the future. The idea was that they would use it to predict movements of stock so they could make profits. I'm not quite sure how this all works. That isn't the way my brain works. I don't understand stocks and futures and that sort of thing, and buying long and selling short and all that different. I just don't. Anyway, this machine that is called Cassie, it would predict economic futures depending on certain scenarios. They could program in different scenarios and see what would happen. And the 3 key words in this book that affect everything: oil, war, flu. This was written in 2015. When the markets suddenly fail, Joe runs. He gets in his car and he drives until the road runs out. And he arrives at a small village in Cornwall called St. Piran. But that isn't the beginning of the novel. We learn all this through flashback. But the beginning of the novel is the naked Joe being washed up on the shore. But Joe isn't the only strange event that night, or that early morning, because at the same time that Joe is washed up, a whale is spotted in the bay. The whale. So that is the beginning of the book. The beginning of the book is the naked Joe being washed up on the shore. And this is where the legend of Joe and the whale begins, because the arrival of Joe, the arrival of the whale, it creates a story that is told through generations in this village. And it's the beginning of an annual festival. Every year they celebrate the whale. While Joe is at St. Piran, he stays there once he's sort of got his breath back after being in the sea and whatever. He stays there. And while he's there, a deadly flu, sweeps across the world. It's almost like a premonition of 2020, isn't it, this one? And not only are the people dying, but supply chains are broken. There's no electricity. There's no water. But it's St. Piran, rather than the bleak life that a lot of post-apocalyptic novels have got. In some post-apocalyptic novels, you've got violence, you've got brutality, you've got people, sort of fighting for that scrap of food, that type of thing, where brutality is reigning. Rather, it's not this. In this novel, we don't have that. what we have is human interconnectedness and community. It's a story where kindness wins. And as I said, this is written in 2015, 5 years before our pandemic. And it's interesting to read how this author thought that a community could react. Because, I don't know what 2020 was like for you, but all I saw was people living in fear. But that isn't here. It is a good read. It makes you think. And what we could, should, would do if a pandemic ever hit again. This was a heartwarming, charming read. And you will love Joe. You will absolutely adore Joe. He's a great character. So, The Whale at the End of the World by John Ironmonger. This is why I like charity shops. Sometimes a book will just leap out at you. You never know what you're going to get. Just a cover or a title. And you think, I'm going to read that. And I did. And it was a thoroughly good read. So, The Whale at the End of the World by John Ironmonger. Happy reading. Take care. Bye.